Hey everybody, this is Haxelpik here, and today I'm going to be showing you the first 3 steps to character creation. The first thing you're going to need for making a character in Pathfinder is the core rulebook. Then you'll need a character sheet that looks a lot like this, found in the back of your rulebook, right after page 569. Be sure to photocopy in black and white and save at least one so you don't ruin your binding. Then roll 4 6-sided dice 6 times, always taking out the lowest number. I'll show you an example. Roll the dice. I got a 5, a 5, a 3, and a 4. I take out the 3 and record on scratch paper the total number, which would be 14. And then continue to do that 6 times until you get 6 scratch numbers. If you ever roll anything below 12, so an 11 and below, then you can re-roll that one. You will want to re-roll that one, unless you really don't want to, but you will want to. Set aside your scratch paper numbers until later, and now we'll move on to choosing a class and a race. So these are the races. You have a dwarf, halfling, elf, human, gnome, half-orc, and half-elf. I generally tend to choose race before class, but you can do it in any order that you feel like doing it. I'm going as an example to make a human, just because that's the easiest and the most evenly balanced race. It's a good starting race, but really you can start using any race. So before we actually get into choosing a race, I'll actually show you what a race is. As you can see, they are just your starting humanoids that you choose out of. These are the core races. You generally do not choose a race other than a core race unless you really feel like it, but as a starting player, you are not going to. So a race really is pretty simplistic. You have just what they are from birth. So let's get on to actually creating the character. Now the first thing you do when choosing a race is you will read just the whole description of your race if you haven't already before. You just read it, and then once you're done reading the whole description of the race, then you move back and go to racial traits, and those are the statistics you write down. And give me a minute to show you how to do that. I'm reading this backwards to you, but it's not to me, and you probably can't read it anyways. So, without further ado, I'm just going to read the racial traits. So, the first one for humans, they get +1 to 1 ability score, or +2 to 1 ability score. And the ability scores are these: strength, dexterity, constitution, wisdom, charisma, found on the character sheet, like right here, and I'll explain those later. You'll use your scratch paper numbers that you just wrote down a couple minutes ago, and then put them in here after you choose your class and race. So that's what you'll do with the +2 to 1 ability score. Humans are medium-sized creatures, so under size you'll write medium. And then they have a normal speed, and normal speed is 30 feet. And you'll write that under speed, right, base speed right there. And then bonus feat, they get an extra feat, and I'll get to that later, probably in the next video for creating your character. Skilled, humans get an additional skill rank. Okay, so skills you write here, so they get 1 more every level, but I'll get to that later. And the languages found on the first page also, it is at the bottom, and you just write down the the common, and then for however much your ability modifier is, which I'll tell you what that is. For humans, you get to pick another language for every ability modifier. So that won't make any sense for right now, but so that is the human, and give me a second to write down the statistics and I'll get back to you. Okay, so you write down the character name. I'll get to the alignment later. Then you write who's playing. Then you write their class and level. As you can see, you can't fill in a ton of stuff without your class. So a lot of the race stuff you'll have to skip until you fill out your class. Deity is like, you don't have to have one, but a cleric does. Certain classes do. Homeland, where you came from, that is very important for your backstory. Height, weight, hair, and eyes. A lot of these things for humans can be eyeballed, which means you don't have to use the exact statistics in the book. For the exact statistics, they are all probably going to be in Chapter 7 under additional rules for your height, weight, hair, eyes, and size is medium. I forgot to... Size is under your race. And speed is 30 feet for humans. And your hit points you get by rolling your class hit dice and then adding your constitution modifier. So now I'll get to choosing the class, and then I'll explain all of this stuff, the modifier and all of that, in a minute. So I'm going to be creating a fighter, and I'm going to get all the statistics for the fighter. It doesn't really matter for what I'm going to be showing you in this episode what class you are. So yeah, let me fill out the statistics. Fighter is probably the easiest. That's why I chose fighter and human, because those are the two easiest to do. And I'll be right back. So the main thing you want to be concerned about right now is the skills, or your strength, intelligence, and stuff. And I'll start out by defining each one of them. Hold on, let me get it even here. So strength is basically your capacity to lift things and like swim and climb and things like that. Your dexterity is how dexterity is pretty self-explanatory, but it basically means, if you need a definition, it basically means the score connected to how light-footed you are. Your constitution is your health, or how many blows you can take until you get knocked out and bleed to death. Intelligence is how smart you are, obviously. Wisdom is basically your ability to know what to do, or what someone is thinking, or know what's like around you. Also, wisdom is connected to perception, and perception is a skill that you use basically all the time. Charisma is your ability to persuade people to do what you want them to do in one way or another. It could be by politely asking them, or doing it angrily, like threatening them. And charisma, a lot of people tend to think charisma means you're prettier or really ugly, but it doesn't really affect that necessarily. It simply means you're really noticeable. Like, people notice you a lot. And based on your class skills, you're going to, and what you want your character to do, you're gonna write in here each score. For a fighter, you're probably gonna want a lot of strength, charisma, dexterity, and constitution. Intelligence and wisdom, wisdom more than intelligence, probably. It just all depends. You can do whatever you want, but for depending on the class, certain ones are going to be better suited. Now I'll write these in and show you how the modifiers work. So I've written in the scores that I rolled in each slot for these, and I did it based on what I think my character would be good at. So I think he'd be pretty strong and pretty light on his feet, really healthy, not so smart, and not so aware of his surroundings, but he can get people to do what he wants to do alright. And that's basically what your ability scores do. And you use those for these skills that you want to have for your character. But you can't just take these raw numbers right here, this 12, 14, all of these numbers that you wrote here, and use them for your skills. First, you have to go back to your table on page 17. I would highly advise that you put a bookmark for this, because you will, zoom is off a little, because you will use this so much, it's not even funny when you're creating characters. So like put a little tab or just photocopy it, copy it and put it in a folder, paste it in a folder. That's what I did, and I put a bookmark in it as well. But for these, it'll show you how much, what ability scores equal to be what. So a score of 10 to 11 is a 0, and those can be re-rolled. Anything below a 0 you really don't need, because you can re-roll them. But 12 to 13 is a +1, 14 to 15 is +2, 16 to 17 is +3, 18 to 19 is +4, and I don't really think you can get 20 to 21 when creating a level 1. But, I don't know, 6, 12, 20. Yeah, you can. It's just really, really hard to get either +5 or +6. So anyways, you write those in on, once you figure them out. I had this messed up for a long time. I thought these were your like bonuses that you use, but they're not. They're your ability modifiers found on this table, and you write them in here, and all those +1, +2, plus whatevers mean when you write them in next to your score is you use those for your skills down here, where all these skills are. Now, I'll show you what to do when doing skills. First, give me a second to write in all these modifiers. Now that I've got my modifiers in here, I can now go over to my skills, and under your race, it'll say 2 skill ranks per level, or whatever number it is for that class. For fighter, it's 2, plus intelligence modifier, and then for humans, you get a +1 every level. And you use these skills throughout the game. You're always, no matter what class you are, going to want to take at least 1 rank in perception on first level, because you use that all the time. And all the rest are up to you, and I would advise that you use your class skills somewhat, and then kind of customize your own a little bit. It just depends, you know, use your own discretion. So then, under these skills, it's kind of hard to see these, so I'm going to zoom in a little more. I'm reading upside down here. So you've got Dexterity, for acrobatics. You need to be dexterous to use acrobatics. So you use your dexterity modifier, which is +2 if I wanted acrobatics, plus you write in 1 rank if you want to put a rank in, and then you can check in that box over here. So let's say I wanted to take acrobatics, so I'd do this. Fill in acrobatics, and then put a rank in it, 1, because that's I only want to put 1 in there. And then you write your dexterity modifier, and my dexterity modifier is +2, and I can't write that in upside down, sorry. So you'd write +2, and that equals to be a +3 bonus. So what this means is whenever the dungeon master or the game master, whichever you want to call them, asks you to make an acrobatics check, or you want to do something that would require acrobatics, you just roll your d20 and whatever else you need to roll, and on your d20 you always constantly get a +3 no matter what you roll. And acrobatics, I'm not going to explain that. You'll figure that out eventually over the time of gameplay and when to use that. But usually, if you don't even know what acrobatics is, and you know kind of just what it is in real life and not what it means in the game, you can just let your DM figure that out. Alright, so now that I've done that, I'll fill in the rest of the skills and get back to you in a minute. Okay, so skills, you should just put in your rank and then put in your modifier, and remember that you always, every level, you get however much your class says, plus your intelligence modifier, plus 1 if you're a human, and 2 if you're a fighter, and my intelligence modifier right now is 1, so I got 4 total skills. And I also finished my other language. Languages, I think you can find all of the different languages on page... Hold on, I'll pause it so I can find it. You can find languages in Chapter 4 skills, because languages, all the languages are listed under linguistics skill on page 101 and 102. And if you're a human, you can choose any of them. And if you get a skill in linguistics, you get another language, and however many more rank bonus languages you get is depending on how much linguistics you put in on your linguistics skill. But for my fighter human, I only got 2 languages because I only have +1 modifier, and humans only start off with 1 language. So I only have Common and Draconic because my fighter, Daniel, or Danny, really doesn't like kobolds. So he learned the language of the kobolds so he can badmouth them whenever he finds one. So yeah. Things like that and your backstory make your character really fun. And I'll show you how to finish and continue, probably not finish, but maybe, in the next episode of creating your character for Pathfinder Role Playing Game. Thanks for watching. This has been Haxelpik, signing off.